Good morning and welcome to SimWorld today, Tuesday morning. I am Marsh, joined by the Western man, the cowboy himself, J.R. Storm. Good morning, J.R. How are you feeling this fine Tuesday morning?
I'm feeling great, Marsh. Ready to talk some SimWorld action again.
Well, we will certainly be talking plenty of it. We've got some football recapping in SWFL. We've got a special guest coming up to close things out. Well, let's start with Monday Night Football, where the New York Jets on play number 4 managed to keep Aaron Rodgers in the game, but they did not manage to maintain possession on a fumble by Breece Hall, which set the stage for a blowout loss at the hands of a Christian McCaffrey-less, but who needs him because we've got Jordan Mason, San Francisco 49ers. JR, this was a absolute beatdown on Monday Night Football. The score might not look it. It was a 2-possession game in the fourth quarter, but at no point did this feel like a game the Jets were coming back in.
No, definitely not. And 49ers offense was as advertised and as expected. They just have too many weapons offensively. They have, if you ask me, probably the deepest offense across the board in all of this, of the SimWorld Football League. It's just that simple. And McCaffrey not going to play. Jordan Mason, I forget what the exact line was. I want to say
28, 147, and a touchdown.
28 carries. I knew he was over 20. I just couldn't remember the exact number. But the fact that he's able to step in, and then obviously, Debo doing Debo things, George Kittle stepping up. I mean, they were just overall too much. And I truthfully don't see any reason why they wouldn't be in yet another NFC Championship game when all is said and done.
Look, you're right. I mean, there's no reason not to. We are week 1, so injuries are going to happen, and which obviously is going to derail any hopes of championships, whether that's the Niners or elsewhere. We've got 17 or 16 more games, 17 more weeks to figure things out. But the Niners against a really, really good Jets defense. It's not as if this was a Jets defense that's kind of iffy. Do we know what they got? This is a good Jets defense. They've got a really great secondary. Obviously, Sauce Gardner headlines it. C.J. Mosley in the middle for their linebacker core. This is a 3-level, if they can ever get Hassan Riddick figured out, a 3-level defensive unit that is the reason they were not a 3-win, 4-win team last season when Aaron Rodgers went out. You wouldn't have known that from yesterday because Jordan Mason, like you said, 28 for 147. In his career, he came into the night with 83 combined carries over the last 2 years. He nearly put a third of that out there, actually more than a third of that, in one game. He was absolutely dynamic, and that's not to say that it was all on Jordan Mason because the holes that he had to run through were gaping. They were the size of the Golden Gate Bridge with what he was running through. This Jets defense had absolutely no answer. We talk about the skill position players, and you're right. The skill position players for the 49ers are probably the best in the league. Jawan Jennings leads the team with 6 receptions and 64 yards. Who needs Brandon Ayuk? They gave him a 4-year deal only to get 2 receptions. My fantasy team hurt because of that, but that's not what matters. The offensive line for the San Francisco 49ers team is absolutely dynamic, and they were last night. And as great as these receiving pieces are, as great as they now have a 2-headed running back combination if they care to use it, this is a team that's going to win not necessarily because of that, but because their offensive line gave one Brock Purdy all the time in the world to find whoever he wanted whenever they were open. And then whoever's running the football, whether that's Jordan Mason or whether that's Christian McCaffrey in the long run, he wasn't getting touched until he was 2 to 3 yards downfield. I mean, this was an absolute display of force by this 49ers front line. Let's go to the Jets, so we're not just lauding a team that's winning. Let's go to the Jets side. What's your panic level right now for a New York Jets team that just Aaron Rodgers 13 to 21 for 167, Breece Hall 16 carries, 54 yards. Only 6 receptions. Like decent night for Garrett Wilson, 6 of 60, but he's not the leading receiver. That, of course, would have been Allen Lazard, 6 for 89. Your thoughts, your panic level for this team right now?
I'm not panicking really at all yet if I'm the Jets. Aaron Rodgers, I'm sure, still in some ways a level of maybe being rusty, considering coming off this past season and, being out for a good majority of it. And, you have to like what you see, like you said, what you saw from their receivers last night, not just Garrett Wilson, but, Alan Lazard. And, Brees Hall's going to be an efficient running back for you. The defense will figure it out. I'm not really panicking at all. I mean, every team has a bad night at some point. Just so happened the Jets were on week 1.
And it just so happened that they played the second best team in the entire league a year ago. You can make the argument, obviously they lost in overtime, so the argument is there that they were the best team last year. They just didn't play their best in the biggest game. So it's a tough opener. My only thought on the Jets, and I think this kind of goes league-wide for a lot of these starters, man, we need preseason, man. We need preseason because this is some of these teams just don't look functioning. Their players don't look right. Aaron Rodgers looks out of sync, and I think we've become infatuated with this. Well, the preseason, you get like 2 possessions and then you're done. And week 1, and I'll be curious what week 2 looks like. Week 1 is the reason why. I mean, you look at some of the passing lines that quote unquote elite quarterbacks had in week 1, and it is not impressive. I think we need to find some way to get people make the preseason relevant again because it is right now absolutely not. And the way the league wants to trend is to get rid of preseason games and add another regular season game, and the product is going to hurt because of it, not to mention all the roster spots. All right, speaking of getting hurt, let's head to LA where the Los Angeles Rams put Puka Nacua on the IR. He re-aggravated his knee injury in the Sunday night loss in overtime to the Detroit Lions. So that means he is going to be out for at least 4 weeks. What's the concern, JR? Does this deaden the Rams' chances this season? Can they survive without him?
It'll definitely hurt the Rams, I believe. But, there is still one X factor that they have, and that's Cooper Kupp. They still have Cooper Kupp, so, I mean, they still have a reliable receiver, you can go to, veteran guy, been in the system, been in the league for a long time. You can count on him. Yes, he was hurt and then kind of struggled last season, but you still know what he brings to the field. And, I think they quietly have one of the nicer running back rooms in the NFC. I really like what they got, in Blake Corum backing up the starter, running him on special teams as well. I think the Rams will be just fine. And, you mentioned your fantasy team earlier. Now, with Puka out, my receiving room's actually absolutely crushed.
Well, who you got? Puka and who else?
I got Puka, Debo, and that's my main
two.
two.
You just got 2. Oh, okay. Well, at least Debo's still healthy. Well, the Rams, the Rams done. I don't think the Rams are done because Cooper Kupp, who I'm fortunate enough, because this is apparently just the who do we have in fantasy hour. Cooper Kupp, a great participant on my fantasy team, so love that. 14 for 110 and a touchdown. I think we get caught up way too often, and I think in the SWFL we're just going to see a shift in players being more efficient into their 30s, much like we've seen in basketball, where great players are being good or great later into their 30s. I'm not saying the same depth into the 30s, but Cooper Kupp, we see one injury season for this guy. And we're like, it's done. He's over. He's not done. I mean, he was absolutely fantastic on Sunday night. But this is the Rams' upcoming schedule. They have a bye week in week 6, so it kind of lines up well that Puka on IR will miss 4 games, but it's actually 5 weeks off. So you get the bonus of that bye week at the end there. This is their schedule. At Arizona versus San Francisco, at Chicago versus Green Bay. Arizona did not look good in the second half against Buffalo. Chicago did not look good at all in that Tennessee game, and a Will Levis boneheaded, maybe the worst pick of the last decade play is the only reason they're 1-0 after week 1. Caleb Williams was atrocious, and that team had 149 yards of total offense against the Titans. The Titans, team who's expected to finish at the bottom of the AFC South. I think there's a real pathway. The other 2 games, like we said, San Francisco, Green Bay at home. San Francisco is going to be a challenge. I think there's a realistic path for the Rams to sit at 2-3, headed into the bye week when Puka comes back. But I think they could be better because Cooper Kupp is still elite and Matthew Stafford is still fantastic. I think there's a
Yep.
concern level of where do you go from here because after that it's a decent drop off from Tyler Johnson was good 5 of 79. Colby Parkinson, they just need to find who's going to be number 2 because otherwise if I'm any of those 4 defenses, I'm just going to do man coverage or I'm going to do cornerback underneath and then I'm going to do safety over the top. I'm going to bring over a linebacker to help. I'm going to do anything and everything to make it difficult for Cooper Kupp to get anywhere close to 10 receptions, let alone 14. That is going to be the focus of this offense for the opposing team. That's where my concern level lies. But I have found a way to never doubt Sean McVay because he
Yep.
is. We
Absolutely.
we get infatuated with Kyle Shanahan. I'm not saying we shouldn't, but he is working with A+ material. The Rams offense, I do not think that Sean McVay has ever been working with A+ material, and he continues to make them relevant, which is why I'm
Yep.
not panicking about the Rams, but you never like to see a guy have a knee injury aggravated. Just doesn't project great long term. All right, let's bring in our last little segment, and we're going to welcome in the head coach of the Heartland Zombie Stars, one and only Bryan Loveless. Good morning, Bryan. Good morning, Coach. How are you?
I'm doing well, Marsh. Good morning, fellas.
Look, Bryan, appreciate you taking the time to come on. Take the time out of your morning. So fill us in. How are things looking right now? You're 1 month away from the start of the SimWorld Prep regular season and the tournament season. How are you feeling about this group that you've assembled? It's a young one. It's a new look. But Heartland Zombie Stars trying to get back on the map.
Um, I hit the recruiting trail hard early. Getting guys like Justin Zhang and Nick Brewer, and yes, this is a brand new core of guys that have limited work together, other than on the open run scene. And Nick Brewer, Justin Zhang, Justin being from Delaware, he's he's kind of out of the loop of the usual run of guys that come from the Midwest that I usually tend to prefer. Uh, got Brian Walls, Deontay Hilario, who I mean, I got Diego Hilario, who came back, um, and putting them together with guys like Ace London, Nick Brewer, and Darren Harris. Is we're gelling right now as the season progressively gets closer, and I'm liking what I'm seeing so far.
And Coach Loveless, Marsh kind of alluded to it, a lot of new faces, you're going, you mentioned some of your guys, you're going from Benari, Barkley, and Honcho to, Justin Zhang and guys like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a certain difference in, say, the team dynamic, I guess, with the sort of younger look and new roster construction going from Benari and company to now your current squad?
Well, Benari coming off such an offensive explosion with Indy before he got to us, and me and him kind of discussed and established who, where the hierarchy is on the team as far as scoring and leadership and all of that, all of those things. A lot of these guys are young, and a lot of these guys are getting their first opportunities in SimWorld Hoops, and again, they're trying to establish a hierarchy of who's the guy, who's the number one option, who's the number two option, who's going to get the touches, who's going to be the vocal leader on the court, off the court, and things of that nature. And they're congealing more as a team as well. I mean, against what Benari and Barkley and AJ Blaylock and those guys kind of came in. They're looking like, hey, Benari's the guy. Let's apply some support for him, and we could bring this together and get some victory.
Coach, obviously last off season, there was plenty of let's call it drama around your arrival in Heartland and everything that happened and that led to your departure from Lakeshore Drive. what's life been different like with a ownership group led by LaShawn Patterson compared to the one that you were with previously with Rosante Vance? Obviously, you guys had a differing of opinion. So what's life like now for you, and how's it different from what it was like with Heartland?
Um, Patterson has been a lot more, laid back and willing to give me the reins a little bit. And, it's been a very smooth relationship. And I'm able to go get the guys that I like. And it's not really hey, it's not a given. It's almost like a give and take relationship with me and Patterson as well. Uh, as well as when I was back at home in Chicago, and it was more of a do this, do that. And me and Vance have discussed some things over the off season and kind of patched it up. And but we're still not on the same page, but we've gotten past the things that were in front, the obstacles that were in front of us together as a whole in last off season. So it's our relationship has changed. But would I say I would like to work with him again? Not necessarily, but we've our dynamic has changed as our relationship has changed moving forward. But Patterson is a lot more laid back, a lot more easier to work with. It's more of a team effort instead of like a dictatorship almost. But I'm a lot more comfortable and not have to worry about clocking in to approve something with someone instead of just, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? It's more of a give and take relationship with me and LaShawn.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I definitely get that, coach. And obviously Marsh also alluded to this earlier. Season's becoming closer and closer. What's the sort of the overall message to the team heading into this upcoming season?
Uh, the message has changed a little bit from last season to this season. It's more of a, hey, team, we're going to work together to get these victories, offensively, defensively. Of course, I'm a defensive minded coach, so defense is always going to be number one priority. If you stop them, you can beat them. I know what these guys are capable of offensively, and where they can hang their hat set. So it's like, hey, we got guys out of here on any given night that can give us 15, 20, 25. But it's all about, can we limit those guys, the Monty Pattersons, the Kai Killings of the world, and can we make the rest of the team beat us, and can we stop those guys as well? So that's the message I'm going to forever push forward. Stop them, and we can beat them.
Well, Coach, look, we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us this morning. Best of luck this season. Season begins obviously in October. You'll have those 4 tournaments to showcase all the skill set that you've put there in Heartland. So, best of luck. Look forward to seeing how the season plays out for you and the squad, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thank you.
All right, that is our show. Thank you to Coach Loveless for hopping in. JR, as always, a pleasure chatting with you. We will be back tomorrow morning as we keep this train rolling along for some Wednesday edition of SimWorld Today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us here on SimWorld Today on SimWorld TV, the only place you could see the game, be the game.